And joining me right now here to kick off the week on the Mark Moses Show is a very fine gentleman from the great state of Illinois. He is Reid Rooney with Bleacher Nation. And my dad and I found an article of his, and we both loved it over the weekend. And we're like, we got to get this guy on. And yes, my dad, he'll help me book guests from time to time. Reid Rooney, my man, how you doing today?
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the intro. I don't know that anyone would call me a fine gentleman besides my mother, so it's nice to hear somebody else say that. But yes, I appreciate your father being a loyal reader of Bleacher Nation, and I think we got a lot of really interesting responses from that article you referenced. I'm sure we'll get into it. But I'm here in Chicago. I run a company called Bettsperts Group that owns Bleacher Nation. And I think it was a rare instance of adults being treated like adults and being transparent with them. So we'll get into that later, but thanks for having me and happy to be here.
Okay. All right. So I'll take a step back, man. Tell us about your main company you just brought up and what that's all
Yeah.
about.
So my co-founder and I started a company called Bettsperts Group that was about 6.5 years ago, realizing sports betting was going to be more popular and social than people had realized at the time. And so we started started a website and an app that was kind of a social media business, grew and scaled, and then we raised some money, went on a bit of an acquisition spree. Bought 4 brands in 18 months, Bleacher Nation being the last one, as
Nice.
well as starting one or two more. So in total, we have 5 or 6 different brands that cover sports betting, social media platforms for sports fans, as well as fantasy football, subscriptions for advice, golf subscriptions and advice for bettors and fantasy players. And then on top of it, our largest property is Bleacher Nation, and that was for more traffic as well as greater SEO on Google to kind of get into our funnel of audience. And so it's been an incredible platform, and I think the Bleacher Nation story is a really unique one when sports media is struggling. Free sports media is struggling these days, and it's thriving. So credit to the founder there.
Okay, if I may ask you this, sports betting here in Florida became legal about a year ago. It was held up in courts. It's a long story. You're there in Illinois. It's been a couple years. Like you're talking about sports betting. If I may ask you, how has it changed the landscape? Because I think we're the same age where it used to be what's Vegas thinking. Now everyone's doing sports betting in these states. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, Florida and Illinois are two very unique ones. Florida, there's monopoly with
Yeah.
the Hollywood casino because of the tribes and the powers that they have around sports betting, right? There's also some DFS issues where you can't do typical prize picks game. You have to do peer to peer. So it's a very interesting legal state that everyone's watching, and California will probably follow in some way. Illinois, to the state that we are, had a huge licensing fee to get into the state. Only a couple were able to get in because you had to physically have a location. Then COVID happened, and that all went away. So a bunch of these companies paid these huge fees and then had to have a physical location. But DraftKings and FanDuel at the very end were able to get East St. Louis and some other location far away that wasn't going to need foot traffic because pandemic. You couldn't go in the casino, so you could sign up mobily. So both states have had some interesting kind of court cases along the way. And I think that's pretty unique across the country for those two stories. Now, what I will tell you, people don't know about sports betting. It's not a particularly profitable part of the ecosystem for casinos or operators. You think about a casino when you walk in Vegas. Where's the sports book? It's this usually small little section way in the back because you walk past the slots, the games, the drinks, all of that to get there. What you bet $100 on a football game and you wait 3.5 hours to get an answer when you could have played how many blackjack hands by then? So the margin in sports betting is somewhere between 8 to 10% typically, maybe 12 on a great month. But the cost of running sports betting in each individual state is so expensive. What it's really there for is when iGaming, which is mobile casino on your phone essentially, comes more alive in more states. So it's a foot in the door for mobile casino eventually. And how it's changed the landscape, people don't realize this. You might hate gambling, you might love gambling, doesn't matter in this capacity. It has saved sports to some level. All your sports websites, all your favorite teams, all your favorite stadiums, They all have sponsorships from sports betting and casinos because that is where the money is in the space right now and the investment for future iGaming and such. And without that, sponsorship would really be hurting. Teams would be really, really hurting. Look at how television and the regional markets have gone for sports broadcasting and such. Without the casinos propping them up or the operators propping them up, the landscape across sports media would be vastly different than it is right now. So that's what's the biggest change for me at the moment. You have a couple player scandals that aren't educated, that nobody bets their props and they bet their own props too big. It's a big red flag, but hopefully that can stay away, and hopefully we can dismiss some of the black market betting that continues to happen, which is really actually where the danger is. But all in all, it's an interesting space to be in. It's not going away, and it'll actually probably be even more because as states need tax income to grow, but they can't get taxes across, they will legalize iGaming.
That was fantastic. Have you been waiting weeks to answer that question? That was awesome, dude.
I talked to enough potential investors and acquirers and things along those
Yeah.
lines to have that ready to go. But that is 2% of how deep I can go right now on what the benefit is in the market for sports betting. Now, consumer protection is a massive, massive need across the way. But yeah, it's also interesting the difference between European gamblers and American gamblers. European gamblers think we're all not very smart because people bet same game parlays for lottery tickets rather than trying to find the best odds to bet on. So, Florida, you only have one odds, and you can one group odds, and you can imagine what that not being great for consumers because there's no competition for that aspect. So there's lots of little intricacies across the way.
I appreciate you answering that question. Let's get to the article that started, I don't know, kind of a controversy, if that's the best way to put it. And I like on Twitter, there's like 10,000 views. Everyone's giving their opinion. You were talking about politics and sports and message boards with your website. What happened exactly, Reid?
So to give you a little context of Bleacher Nation, I think it's important. It started 20 years ago as a Cubs blog, Chicago Cubs blog, coming from a diehard White Sox fan. I was aware of it the last couple of years because it's grown into a Chicago sports site. But it is the number one website in the world covering Chicago Cubs, and now I believe the number one website in the world covering Chicago sports as well. We cover every team except for the White Sox, which is the irony of it. And one big piece of it is the message boards or messages or comments on every article. Okay. And so there's a huge heritage and history of a community on this website. And it really is an incredible community, but there's of the 20 million people that visit a year, there's 100 to 200 people that think the internet is theirs and they can do whatever they want with it and say whatever they want. So going through and making sure that there's appropriate comments or appropriate content on the website that we own is something that's important to us. So we don't cover politics. We sometimes have sports articles that intertwine with politics. I think that is important to say.
Yeah.
And politics now are different than politics were 10 years ago, right? We all understand, probably more than different than they were 4 years ago. But I really don't care what you believe in politically, whether you're right, whether you're left, whether you're in the middle. It does not matter to me. You have that right, and you can believe what you want to believe. You have different experiences and different things that matter to you in life. That is great, and that's what makes this country great. But one thing that's important to us is protecting the brand. So we had an article that was about the Jackie Robinson military record being removed from the Department of Defense's website, right? And I don't ever make content decisions. I run the business, not the content side of it. So the guy who runs Bleacher Nation for us and is responsible for that came to me and warned me that this was going to go up and asked me, do I want to cover it? And what should we do if there are some comments that, if you think about trolls on the internet, get out of hand? And so I made the decision, me exclusively, which was what's something I put in the article, for the first time in 20 years, to turn comments off on an article. I wrote one comment on the bottom of the article of why I was turning it off, and then we published it, and that is what created the next 4 days in our life, which were quite interesting, and I'd be more than happy to walk you through even further if that's where you want to go.
Do you need 5 hours to read off every comment that was submitted to you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna read off every comment because I don't want my mother to hear those ones. But what happened, which is kind of funny, what happened, and I didn't predict, was the comments just went to the next article. So a Cubs article was produced, or a Bears article was produced, and the comment section of that just got taken over. The comment became less of no, there's plenty of politics in there of why it was removed or what happened or who's right. Which again, if you do respectfully, that's fine. I have no problem. You're able to have that discourse on our website. Now, I'd like it to be sports mostly because it's a safe place. And people, that's what our goal is for our consumer. But then a lot of calling me racist and other words about being soft and such, which is fine. I wanted to see the reaction of consumers, and I was very confident. I did not want a few things to be said that I was fearful would be said because it's the internet today. So then we probably cover 5 to 10 articles a year that have this potential power. 2 days later, there's one more article, and it's the potential immigration issues with Venezuelan minor leaguers. And again, in the article, we report that it likely isn't going to impact, but it may impact. And if it does, here are the statements. Here's that. Neither of these two articles had anything to do with opinions from us. They were just factual. And just an FYI, we want our consumers and readers to be educated on potential issues, even if they don't happen, right? And so one of we decided to leave the comments on for this one. Shockingly, yes, the internet took this one over as well, and I thought there was some really good conversation, some good discourse, and then there was a bunch of comments that were made about political views and beliefs, and then some bullying back and forth, and some inappropriate stuff back and forth. So it was kind of an experiment to see the two different actions with comments on and with comments off. And I thought it was imperative to address the readers after that, and that's where the article that your father read came from.
Okay, Reid. So the question is, moving forward, will comments be allowed on articles, or is it depending on the story? How are you going to try to handle it?
Yeah, I wrote an article that was pretty long and was very, very transparent of the process, the decision making, and what I'm thinking moving forward. I gave 3 options: 1, turn off comments; 2, keep comments on; 3, not report on these stories. And in the article, I explained that you might the former founder, the former owner of Bleacher Nation, when it was his business, was very open about his political beliefs, and so people think that's what the website is. It's not accurate anymore. We don't have any political beliefs that we publish or push on you anywhere in our company, and so I explained that nobody on the site knows my political beliefs. And I explained why I could have political beliefs on both sides because of my family and experience and such, but I'm not going to share what they are. So you can't use that as an excuse. If you're left, if you're right, you can't blame either side for turning comments on or leaving them off, right? So what was interesting was I told them I'm leaning towards turning comments off very strongly. I think it'll be difficult to convince me elsewise, but I am genuinely asking for feedback. And here is what matters to me: free speech does not apply here because it's our business, it's our brand, and we have the ability to control what goes on our site and who's able to comment on our site. And so, but I in the article, I think very authentically and genuinely asked for feedback. Which do you think? Why do you think? And what is your experience? I want this to be a safe space. I actually commented on how I started going to therapy last year, and it's changed my life in some capacity. And I know that this is some level of safe space for people where you get away from what's on Twitter, you get away from the stress of work or the stress of politics if it's going the way you believe or not, or anything, right? There's a lot of stress in the world, and I want this to be a place people can escape. So I explained that, but I wanted real feedback. I'm asking for them, the community, which is the most important part for us, to be involved in the process. I think the response was overwhelmingly positive. About 95% of people responded intelligently, thoughtfully and were appreciative no matter what the decision was made, that they were involved and listened to. And I think the big takeaway was adults want to be treated like adults at some point. They can understand the business aspect of it all, but as long as they are heard and listened to, I responded to almost every single comment with, again, very direct thoughts. And it went over very, very well. I think it's a great example of treating people with respect, transparency, not lying to them, and actually involving them in the truth is, I think, an important thing. So I told them that it was very hard to believe that I was going to be convinced elsewise because I wanted to protect our brand. Shockingly, I was convinced elsewise. I think people took it well and realized, hey, we don't want the comments to go to the other section. The trolls are going to do that anyhow. But the outcome is going to be we're going to leave comments on. We are going to have a very, very strict no second chance rules. If you cross the line, you will be banned and not be able to comment. There's no appeal. There's no anything along those lines. So as long as you stay within reasonable human guidelines and have a fine political conversation, you can disagree, you can listen to, you can argue. Not a problem on my side, on my front anymore. But if someone uses slurs or intentionally tries to bully or harm people or put them down, we're just not gonna. I'm not gonna stand for it anymore. But I think the shocking. I'm an Irish kid from Chicago. I'm stubborn as hell, so I'm shocked that I was able to be convinced. But overwhelmingly, I thought there were amazing points on all our social medias, on the website, everything for the people who took the process seriously.
We're here with Reid Rooney. He's with Bleacher Nation. I appreciate coming on and giving your thoughts on this. I know, look, dude, I get it. You probably want to just talk about the torpedo bats with the Yankees right now. Like I get it, which probably got a lot
Oh,
of comments as well.
that might be a worse conversation currently, especially after what the Cubs bullpen did last night. So yeah, like with Chicago sports, you might not know this. I think this show covers a lot down in Florida. Chicago sports, it has been since we acquired it 2 years ago, the literal worst 2 years in Chicago sports history. Blackhawks had the first pick, the second pick. The Bears fired a coach because of an FBI investigation, and then another coach for a sexual harassment issue at Hallis Hall. Then on top of that, allegedly,
Allegedly.
uh, allegedly that is potentially what happened. On top of that, we have an HR issue. It's called an HR issue. The White Sox, worst team in the history of baseball. The Cubs stole Craig Counsell and the Brewers beat them. Didn't spend the money that they wanted to. The Bulls stuck in the middle of nothing and just a horribly run organization at the moment. It's been not a safe or fun place for 2 years, but things are starting to turn around. And as long as we don't have Matt Eberflus anymore, things are starting to turn around. And so I hope it becomes continuously more positive, but those articles can sometimes have a worse outcome than the
Yeah.
political article.
All right. I'll just say this. Like, so I worked in news for a long time. All right. Whatever your opinion is, President Trump is the president. He went to the championship game for college football. That is a fact. Whatever the comment section says, that's not an opinion. That's what happened. He was there. Now, if I was doing the article, that wouldn't be the top headline on my website. The top headline would be Ohio State dominates, wins championship. I hope that makes sense. That's a fact that happened for all the trolls out there.
It does, and that's not even a story we would write. We wouldn't even
Yeah.
include that part from our guidelines. What we would cover is if the Cubs win the World Series, their White House visit. We would cover that.
Yeah.
That's a political story. Jackie Robinson is a political story, and here's a potential political story. I apologize with his history in baseball,
Right.
because of what the DEI and everything's going on. Whether you like it, don't like it, that's not the conversation. It is news. Jeff Passan was reporting it. It is news. What I think is really, really interesting, and it took me a second to take a step back, and I'm not sure if you saw this part of the second article where I announced my decision. There was a commenter who said, "Hey, what if Ted Williams's record was taken down from the Department of Defense? Would you have covered it, and would you have turned comments off?" And I had to look at myself at that moment. We would have covered it, especially if Jeff Passan was reporting it. I wouldn't have turned comments off. I wouldn't have been as fearful of the comments that were going to be put on there, and I included that. I put hand up. I said this was a great point by one of our readers. It helped me learn moving forward because we had a quality discussion on it. What I should do or what I should think about. And then I also learned that Ted Williams, I believe, is his mother was Hispanic as well, or half Hispanic. So
Oh,
I didn't realize that.
no.
I think in general, when you can have these conversations, you can learn from each other. You report the facts. If you want to be involved in the conversation, go to the comments. If you don't, avoid the comments. But people have some things you can learn from, even if you disagree with them. And I think that was a very, very important reflection point that I had, and I think a lot of our readers had.
Let's end with this. And I'd love to get you on again. You, Reid, you're awesome. Okay. Love to
Thank
have
you.
this conversation. Let's end with a fun argument if we can. So there's a lot of times I'm surrounded by New York Yankees fans, and I will stand up for one of my favorite players and say he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Look at the stats. Can we get Mark Burley into the Baseball Hall of Fame? Can we make this happen, Reid? Please.
You aren't going to like what I'm going to say
Oh,
here, and it's not against Mark Burley. It's I. Am I allowed to cuss on the show? I won't. If
you
no.
okay? Don't do it. Forget it.
Okay.
You ruined the moment.
No, here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't care about the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is completely irrelevant if Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. I hate Barry Bonds. I don't like him at all. He's the greatest baseball player that has ever lived. I will stand by three arguments. I played college baseball. I love baseball. Babe Ruth, the greatest career that'll ever happen. You can never have a pitcher and a hitter get that much combined statistics again. So great statistical career. Barry Bonds, the greatest player of all time. Shohei Ohtani is the most talented baseball player that's ever walked the face of the earth. Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. It's completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. Yes, he was a jerk. Yes, he probably, not proven, but probably did some steroids, a lot of them. But so did everybody else at that time, and so did plenty of other Hall of Famers at the moment. Who is the judge, jury, and executioner here in this situation? To leave Barry Bonds out because you didn't like him, that's outrageous. So I would love Mark Burley to be in. I think he's in the Hall of Great first ballot. I'm impressed that he's still on the ballot. I think maybe the Veterans Committee someday gets him in. But until Barry Bonds and the right people are in there, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant without the greatest player in baseball.
If you ever get bored, read Game of Shadows about Balco and Barry Bonds. It's
Okay,
fantastic. I've read it 3 times. I love
I
that
will.
book so much. Uh,
I will.
Reid, what's the website and social media we could check out for all your work?
Yeah, so if you're a fantasy football player, I would check out the number four, FOR4.com. So 4for4.com. It's
Okay.
the best fantasy football rankings, season long and redraft. DynastyFootballLeague.com. If you're a fantasy football nerd and you have a dynasty team, it's the number one dynasty site in the world. Then Bleacher Nation, if you like baseball news or if you're a Chicago fan, it is the number one Chicago website in the world covering sports. So, all in all, we have a few other platforms: Betsports Golf, Bleacher Nation Fantasy, the app as well. But in general, if you like football, check out those sites. If you like the Chicago, come to Bleacher Nation. But the Bleacher Nation has a ton of social as well. Just in general, I hope that you like football. You like what Caleb Williams is going to do in his first ballot Hall of Fame in about 20 years. So
That's right.
that's something we can all agree on.
Reid Rooney, thank you so much for coming on. Have a great week, and I hope I can get you on again sometime.
Thank you very much.